I heard about this event today and came along because I thought it would be really useful. I think it gives you a really great insight about how a museum works in general. And I also like to hear about how the museum reached out to the communities and how different people were accommodated.
Welcome everyone, my name's Martin Thomas. I'm creative programmer. My role is to work alongside and with the RAMM team. I'm employed through what the Arts Council describe as the Major Partner Museum Programme, the MPM, and RAMM and Plymouth are a joint MPM. The principle was established back in the late 90s that there would be an investment in regional museums, and that turned eventually in 2002 into something called Renaissance. That was direct money from the centre pushed back out to the regions all over the country, to places like Birmingham and Manchester and smaller places too, Truro and Bournemouth, and RAMM, Exeter and Plymouth are amongst those. That relationship around direct funding that comes from other sources means that certain activities happen, like these gateway sessions are part of MPM. It's about doing different actions and activities that make greater value of the public investment, but also engage much more in audiences. And there's a lot of talk about this, but what's interesting in museums is that over the last 15 years, in one form or another, there's been a real step change in how museums work with different communities. So, with that in mind, RAMM and Plymouth jointly have an Arts Council MPM leadership role to work with artists to unlock the creative potential of collections. So in a nutshell, engaging with creative practitioners to offer new insights to the museum's collections. RAMM has a collection of over 1 million objects, so it's a huge collection by any measure in the region. Of that collection, most of them, those objects are stored down on the Ark, which is just on the edge of the city. About 100,000 items are stored here on site, and then thousands of objects are on display at any one time. RAMM was first to set up in 1868. When Prince Albert, consort of Victoria, died, many memorials and monuments were being built to Albert. And the connection with Exeter is that the man who was a friend of the Prince, but also was, if I remember rightly, the treasurer or the secretary of the Great Exhibition of 1851, which was the big thing that Prince Albert championed, art and science and culture and everything else. There was a connection here. The person who was friends with him offered some land. There was a big collection. The public paid to build a memorial, the Devon and Exeter Albert Memorial. The idea of a building which could be a school, a free library, because libraries weren't all free at that point. So an art school, a free library, a mechanical college, a mechanical engineering school. A seat of learning, a place of learning, like a miniature version of what got developed in South Kensington, and that was the genesis of the Devon and Exeter Memorial. The building needed to expand. In 1899, the Duke of York, who then became George V later on, came along, opened the new wing and granted the title Royal. And so the museum's name became the Royal Albert Memorial rather than the Devon and Exeter Albert Memorial. And so what we have today is very much a product of that end of the 19th century, beginning of the Edwardian era as we go into 1901 onwards. You have an area within a mile or so, within a kilometre and a half or so of this area, you have some of the richest archaeological and built heritage in the country. Exeter is one of only 5 cities designated for its archaeological heritage in the country, and it's the only one in the southwest. So there's a fascinating amount of heritage around us, a lot of which is on display in the museum. RAMM attracts around 300,000 visitors a year. It's stabilised between that 290, 300,000. The first year we reopened was 350,000, which was phenomenal. But to sustain that number of visitors is quite incredible in a city that has a population of about 120,000. We try to think about different ways of operating that provide new opportunities for people to come to the museum and see something different. And a big part of the commissioning project, a big part of the development project, was to work with artists to create pieces of art that are physically built into the fabric of the building. So not only temporary installations, but artworks that say something different. RAMM does quite a lot of work with audiences and people and visitors that have got mental health problems, audiences with dementia, developing relationships with audiences that have physical or sensory disabilities, as well as lots of stuff around skills development, young people. We have exhibitions officers, 2 exhibitions officers who work in the museum, and they manage the programme. So we have lots of different spaces that get programmed. We have 3 exhibition galleries that are for temporary exhibitions. We have spaces, small spaces for smaller displays. There's the cafe area, there's the courtyard space. All of these areas are places which get programmed with temporary exhibitions, artists, different projects. RAMM's exhibition programme has quite a lot of what we call originated content. So the exhibitions you'll see at the moment, the Queen Victoria and the Hiroshige, are both toured in. And that's quite unusual to have 2 shows that have been toured in. But we have other exhibitions usually that we originate. Other exhibitions are more academic in their approach, or we've done exhibitions which hopefully challenge people's thinking but also create more educational opportunities. Other times it's been a more straightforward, what I would term a vanilla approach. And our programming process is that we meet the museum's team. We have a programming team that meets every 2 months that involves the head of the museum, the management team, audience development, conservation. Everyone gets together and they look at the overall programme usually for about a 2-year period. It's a rolling programme constantly. We focus on exhibitions because that's what that tool is for, to programme the spaces. We get lots of proposals, usually from artists, but also from other museums, but usually from artists. I'd say 2/3 of all exhibition proposals are from artists who live in the city or around the region, asking for an exhibition and asking us how do we make that decision. And the reality is, as a mixed discipline museum, which has arts, antiquities, world cultures and natural history, our programme reflects that. So we do, of course, do art exhibitions, but we also do science and history and multidisciplined exhibitions. Every proposal gets read, every proposal gets a response. It's our philosophy, our principle. We don't operate on an invitation-only basis. We have 4 ambitions that are part of our vision. Our vision is Home to a Million Thoughts. That's the vision that was set up for RAMM when we reopened in 2011, and that was developed through consultation. Home to a million objects, home to a million thoughts, the idea of this being a place of learning. So those 4 principles, if you like, are to develop the use of RAMM's greatest asset, which are the collections. Create a living museum, a place that invigorates and inspires. To improve our welcome, so a much better environment for people. Not just built environment, but the way people are welcomed here by the team. And also to enhance awareness of RAMM, so the idea of better design, service, public art, but RAMM acting as if you like, a cultural ambassador for the city. It's funded by the city. It's the majority of the city's cultural budget is spent here. So therefore, it should be providing something for the city, as a city council, to coalesce around. So yes, it's the collections, the inspiration, the environment, and then that thing around enhancing awareness of RAMM.